Welcome back. You're watching Taking Stock, and this really was a fascinating week that we're taking stock of. Our guests are still with us, Nimesh Shah from ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund and Jay Bala on the charts discussing market technicals. Jay, you know, that's a big call that you're taking, that the market would now go back to all-time highs. What are the three large cap stocks that you think one can buy now?
Yeah, as I said, I'm positive on the banking space and the FMCG space. I think straight out of it, I can say ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, and HUL. You can be positive for the medium to long term. So when Ekta asked me that what is the time frame I'm looking at, this move could be slower than the decline from March to May. So it's not probably going to happen before say July or August. So you got to be a bit more patient because the rise takes a bit more longer than the destruction phase.
Okay. Jay, do you see any value in a couple of these auto stocks? For example, we had Tata Motors, which was up around 5% on the last trading session, along with Eicher Motors, which reacted positively to its numbers, but Hero MotoCorp was lower.
I think there is a very good probability that Bajaj Auto, which was a underdog for so many weeks in the past, I think that's very likely that has bottomed out, and we're going to see a revival in that particular stock. Yeah, Tata Motors too looks positive, but I think it might be a disproportionately low amount of risk that you need to take for being long on Bajaj Auto when compared to other auto names. So it's a low risk, disproportionate amount of reward ratio kind of trade for as long as Bajaj Auto is concerned, but I'm positive on auto sector as such.
Okay, Nimesh, a word on asset allocation now, because till about 4 months back, everything was making money. You were making money in debt markets, you were making money in equity markets. Over the last 1 month, you would have lost in both equities, and even the bond yields have gone back to 8% when the consensus was a move towards 7.5 or so. Going forward, what would be the best asset allocation in case the market has to bottom out now?
In the sense that what we have done, since we are a mutual fund, what we believe in is in asset allocation products. I think in a volatile market in India, especially a volatile 2015, we need, especially when we are looking at retail customers, there has to be a mix of equity and debt, and that equity, most of the mutual funds are always invested. That's what our mandates are. But increasingly, as I said, asset allocation products within, and it is most tax efficient if it is done within the fund itself. Because today it is not possible to invest in debt and say 9 months down the line, if the interest rates come down, it is not possible to get out because you have to pay full tax on it. So it is better to be invested if you go into debt funds, you have to be there for 3 years. But a better idea would be to put in something which is an asset allocation product, where the fund manager himself allocates between equity and debt based on the levels of the market. So we have created strategies which are more of absolute return strategies, like ICICI Prudential Balance Advantage Fund, which keeps on allocating continuously between equity and debt. And your debt component, since it's an equity fund, your debt component also gets the taxation advantage. So I would strongly recommend people to look at this asset allocation strategies which make much more sense in a volatile year that we expect, like 2015.
Okay, well, let's take forward the 10-year debate. We have the IIP data which is going to be coming out for the month of March, along with the CPI data for the month of April. Nimesh, how much of a cue do you think that, say, the CPI data would be for the markets?
I think both these figures are absolutely important, and that is where I would see the pain of India also, especially the IIP numbers. One number that we would want the government to focus on is in this IIP number. I think India, when we say India has bottomed out, when IIP is around 0, how worse can we get? That's why I said I started from that this is the worst that we can have as far as the industrial production is concerned. There's no point in looking at the GDP number if your IIP is going to be 0. So I think this is absolutely essential, and the only way to do it is, as I said earlier, is that government has to spend more money, and if government spends more money, then the private sector will come and invest, and then we'll see some action on the IIP. Otherwise, if the country faces one serious issue today, is the single point IIP number.
Indeed.
CPI, we are well...
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
CPI, I think we have done a brilliant job right from Mr. Chidambaram days. Last 2 years, we have done a brilliant job of managing inflation well. I think RBI and both the government have done a brilliant job in managing inflation. We have to smoothly moved away from WPI and moved to CPI. Everybody is CPI. So I think so that factor we have managed well. And I am not worried, even with the crude getting into 60s, I am not worried about the CPI number as much.
All right, Nimish spoke about crude, and Jay, that's the next thing I want to discuss. Both crude and actually what's happening with currency, because these are the two other important variables that our markets track. What are charts indicating on Brent crude and USD INR?
Yeah, Brent's high of 69 odd that it made on Thursday is a very important high to me. I think it's completed a counter-trend rally from the low it made in 2015. I think we are looking at record lows for Brent for 2015, but I think it'll be something like mid 36, close to 37, 38 when it makes a new low. But this is not going to happen in a very swift fashion. It's going to play out over the next couple of months. But I think the counter-trend rally from 43 to 69 is done. The broad trend is taking hold. I think we have to look at fresh record lows for Brent. And as far as USD INR goes, the last week's price action was very significant. The high it made about 64.5 is pointing to a 5-leg move from the 58 odd lows. So this in the longer term is the beginning of a very large depreciation phase. But in the short term, say in the next 3 to 6 weeks time frame, you will see the rupee strengthen to somewhere close to 61.5, 61. But once it's done that, we're going to see a very, very large depreciation phase set in for the rupee, and we're going to see record lows for the rupee.
Okay, well, that sounds quite bleak for a rupee outlook. But Jay, give us some of your mid-cap picks.
Yeah, I'm positive on something like an Aban offshore. I think, as I said, I'm positive on the oil and gas space. I think it's very neatly coming into the 390, 380 support area. I think if it were to reverse from this current levels, I think it's looking very positive for the next 8 to 12 weeks. I think we are looking at something like 500 plus for Aban. And likewise, if you look at something like Bombay Burma Trading Company, I think it's shaping up very nicely. It could rise something like 25% from current levels. That's a minimum rise I'm anticipating. And if you look at something like IDFC, I think even that's looking positive as long as 150 level holds on IDFC. As long as 150 levels holds, I think the correction would be complete around these levels. I think it start turning around, and we are looking at something like 180 plus for IDFC.
All right, Jay Bala and Nimish Shah, thanks a lot for your time today, and have a good weekend. That's the call for next week. But before we end the show, let's go across to Mangalam Malu for all the events to watch out for in the coming week. Mangalam.
Thanks a lot for that. Quite an eventful week, the next one. In the results season on Monday, May 11th, the key earnings to watch will be Adani Power, Bank of Baroda and Havells Limited as well. We'll also be watching the Eurozone finance ministers meeting for any developments in the Eurozone that will affect the global markets as well. May 12th is a busy day for the earnings. Hold your breath. The numbers are quite a lot. In key earnings to watch, we'll have Dr. Reddy's, Apollo Tyres Limited, Ashok Leyland, Motherson Sumi, Central Bank of India, Union Bank of India, Jubilant Life Sciences and Tribhuvandas Bhinji Zaveri reporting their numbers. Additionally, we'll also be watching Spark as the board of that company will meet on May 12th to consider a rights issue. On the macro front, on May 12th, we'll also be watching for the CPI data for April and the IIP data for March that will be released. On May 13th, pharma company Lupin, Imami, ITD Cementation, a mid-cap stock that has seen a phenomenal run, and VRL Logistics, the IPO which saw massive oversubscription of 74 times, report their earnings. And we'll be watching, it's a busy day for the global markets. We'll be watching the Chinese industrial output, retail sales data that will be released on that day. Also, UK Bank of England will release their inflation report on that day. Germany, France and Italy will release their GDP numbers on that day. UK will also release their jobless data on May 13th, while US will release their retail retail sales data on May 13. Important day for the global markets. May 14 sees the earnings of Jubilant FoodWorks, NCC Limited, Manappuram Finance, Gujarat State Fertilizer Company, Castrol and Arvind Limited from the textile space reporting their numbers. And on the macro data, we'll also be watching the WPI for April and the trade data that will be watched. And the market will also watch PM Narendra Modi's visit to China that starts on May 14th for any developments in between relations between India and China and business to be watched. And on May 15th, we will be watching earnings like JSW Steel, Torrent Pharma, JK Lakshmi Cement, Edelweiss and Cox & Kings report their fourth quarter earnings, while US releases their industrial output data and Japan also releases their preliminary GDP data. So those are the global events we'll be watching on May 15th. With that, back to you.
Okay, with that, it's a wrap on Taking Stock. Thanks for watching.